Hi, I'm Jason Barnard from Kalicube. I'm going to explain to you today why if your knowledge panel isn't part of your digital marketing strategy, you're doing it wrong. So off we go. First, I'll introduce myself. Jason Barnard, the brand SERP guy. This is a brand SERP. It's the search result for a personal name or a company name. Today, I think I'll call myself the knowledge panel guy because that's what we're focusing on. And indeed, John Mueller from Google calls me Mr. Knowledge Panel because, as he says, outside of Google, I know more about this than anybody else. So back to the brand SERP. My brand SERP will show my entire story. Currently living in Paris, as you can see from the LinkedIn profile. I was a voice actor, a cartoon blue dog, as you can see from the songs and the IMDb entry. I was a punk folk musician back in the 90s, the barking dogs down there in the right-hand corner. I have a groovy podcast which is intelligent, interesting and fun. And I'm an author, both on these journals, Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, and the book, The Fundamentals of Brand Search for Business. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Kalicube, and our motto is take control of your brand narrative online and dominate the competition. And that is what we've been doing for the last 10 years. So, the brand SERP guy, Kalicube, we specialize in your brand name, your brand narrative across search, starting with the search result for your exact match brand name. So the plan today, I'm going to talk to you about Kalicube's approach to the SERP, facts and recommendations, what is a knowledge panel, the role of a knowledge panel in search, brand knowledge panels are special, the three-step process, how to trigger and manage knowledge panels, the industry solution to generative AI in search, why knowledge panels are the key to the future of digital marketing, which is the exciting part of this presentation, and the ultimate aim for any business, including yours. So, Kalicube's approach to the SERP, it worked yesterday, it works today, and it already works for tomorrow. I've been in SEO for 25 years, since 1998, and I've used this approach through the entire time I've been working on search, facts and recommendations, as we see here. On the desktop over there on the left-hand side, you can see Kalicube's brand SERP. On the right-hand side, you can see what it looks like on mobile. The mobile version is incredibly confusing to deal with and to analyze. So what I'm going to do is focus on the desktop version. That's what we do at Kalicube, simply because it's easier to explain. And this is a great example of it being easier to explain. On the left-hand side in green, we have recommendations. Now on a brand SERP, it's the recommendations of which content online Google feels is helpful, valuable, and relevant for your audience. It's the recommendations Google is giving your audience about how they might want to engage and interact with you. On the right-hand side, it's showing us the facts that it's understood about the brand, the knowledge panel. The facts it has understood about the brand are now the foundation of any SEO strategy, and as we will see, any answer engine, assistive engine, and indeed any digital marketing strategy moving forwards. Now, the Kalicube process is a term we use for the way that we educate the AI algorithms, and we like to say we educate them like they are children. They are children thirsty for knowledge. You can see Bingbot over there on the right-hand side, Googlebot in the middle, Applebot on the left-hand side, and Calibot as the teacher. Now, we want to educate them about the facts. And as you can see, Bing Chat has understood what the Kalicube process is, and it's getting the information from us. But it also understands what the benefits of each option are. We've educated it not only about what the Kalicube process is, but how it benefits brands to use this process. All of it, once again, comes from us. And at the bottom, you can see the different questions that it's suggesting the user might want to ask to continue their journey with us. How do I access the free resources? Where can I buy the book? And how do I enroll in the Kalicube Academy? And you can clearly see there that Bing is taking the user down the funnel towards purchase. Now, Google, just announced generative AI in search. They're carefully not calling it Bard. And this is what it looks like. And I did a screen capture and sat and thought about this for a while, and it's hugely good news for Kalicube. And we'll see why in a moment. And I think some of you are probably already way ahead of me in terms of what I'm going to be saying when I talk about the fact that this title of this presentation is Knowledge Panels and why they are key. And when you look at this and you know a lot about knowledge panels, it becomes fairly obvious what I'm going to say next. So back to the simplistic question, what is a knowledge panel? Knowledge panel, facts on the right-hand side in the right rail of the SERP on desktop. There are many formats, and I think this is something a lot of people miss. Different formats, depending on the type of entity, the type of information, the confidence in the information Google has, and what it feels is going to be, once again, helpful to the user searching the brand name. Now, what's its purpose? A quick clue is it's a time saver. It's a summary of the information behind the search results that Google feels confident are factually accurate and helpful to the user. And that's exactly what Bing Chat does. It searches Bing results, pulls the results up, summarizes them, and creates what I would call a dynamic knowledge panel to show the user just the answer they need. So Bing Chat and Google's generative AI are simply dynamic knowledge panels. Now, brand knowledge panels are Google's understanding of the facts about the brand as an entity. It's a summary of what it's understood. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, more understanding, on the right-hand side, less understanding. Meta, incredibly well understood. Kalicube, very well understood. WordLift, slightly less well understood. Kalicube Pro, slightly less again. And Perceptive Fittings Limited, very little understanding, just the name of the company. But even that one right there on the right-hand side, it's the least understanding of these, but compared to most brands, at least 50% of brands do not have a knowledge panel. So Perceptive Fittings Limited are already doing better than most brands. Here's the part that I think you've been waiting for, is what can you do? What can you do to trigger and to manage and to optimize a knowledge panel and feed these AI algorithms like their children with the fact about your brand, your products, your offers? There are 3 steps to take control. Every entity needs a home. The go-to place for information that Google trusts about that brand. John Mueller calls the process reconciliation. What John Mueller is saying is that the web is a mess and Google is struggling to make sense of that mess and be confident in its understanding. And the word confident is hugely important here. Understanding is one thing, confidence in understanding is another. And if we think about the child, its confidence in its understanding is hugely, hugely, hugely important. It won't show information unless it's confident that information is true. The point of reconciliation, we call it the entity home, is where the brand, the entity, the person gives their version of the facts to Google. And Google then takes that version and reconciliates all the other different versions around the web using that as its reference point. So it's looking for your story, your version of the facts from you. The entity home is shown in the knowledge panel with a little world icon, and you can see here my music group, The Barking Dogs, has an entity home on my own website, which indicates as well that the entity home can be on your own website, but potentially the entity home could be on somebody else's website. And that's something you don't want. You want to take control. So it's a page on a website that you control, where you describe clearly who you are and what you do. That means the About page is ideal, since if you put the entity home on the home page, which is the one naturally Google will go for because of the number of links to it, you'll struggle to separate the message to your users who you're trying to sell to from the factual message you want to give to Google. So having an about page dedicated as the entity home is much, much more sensible, because there you can explain the facts and you can set them out in a way that makes sense to Google. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be attractive to users, but you use it as a way to communicate the facts, your version of the facts, to Google over time. And it will be the place that Google will come back to time and time and time again to double check what you want it to understand about your brand, who you are, what you do, and which audience you serve. From that entity home, you need to signpost multiple independent, authoritative third parties that corroborate what it is you're saying. We call that accumulation of corroboration, multiple sources that corroborate what it is you're saying, the facts about your entity, who you are, what you do, which audience you serve. And preferably, they will link back to your entity home, and you create an infinite self-confirming loop of corroboration, where Google goes to the entity home, reads the facts, you point it to another source such as Crunchbase, it sees the same version of the facts or a very close version of the facts, no contradictions on that website, and that website then points back to the entity home. It goes from the entity home out to another website, for example, Wikidata, and sees the same facts again. And it comes back from Wikidata to the official site, which is your own website, the about page, the entity home, and then goes out to Google Books perhaps and sees the same information, comes back to the entity home, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Google is a child. It learns from pure repetition. And you want to make your page the reference for you, and the ultimate sign that you've managed to do that is that not only do you have the entity home as a world icon in your knowledge panel, but you also have the description being pulled from the entity home itself, which means you control the brand narrative when Google is presenting the facts about you. And when we think about generative AI in search and Bing Chat, that's hugely important, that it believes you and that you can feed it with information about you, your offers, and the audience you serve. Importantly for that description, 4 out of 10 website knowledge panels do not cite Wikipedia, 3 out of 10 don't cite anybody, 1 out of 10 cite a non-wiki source, and 1 out of 100, 1%, only 1%, cite the brand's own brand narrative, brand story from their entity home. 1% is tiny, and it isn't that difficult to do. As you can see, these two companies have done it. Kalicube has done it in the past. It doesn't always stick, but we're going to get that back. And with a solid entity home, you can feed the knowledge graph. As you can see here, with the entity home on jasonbarnard.com, which is why I used that as an example earlier on, I could change the information in the knowledge panel in 8 minutes. That's a huge amount of control. It's a huge amount of control over the facts that these engines have understood and will represent to the subset of its users who are your audience. Now, the huge point is generative AI in search and why knowledge panels are the key. Here you can see from the screenshot of Google's presentation last week in May 2023 that there are similarities between knowledge panels and the panel that the generative AI is showing, including the knowledge panel cards represented over there on the right by generative AI cards, the description about the entity, and then the additional questions on the left-hand side, personality, wife, question, and on the right-hand side, ask a follow-up, how long to spend at Bryce Canyon with kids, and so on and so forth. So those suggested questions are already represented in Google's knowledge panel. You can now see why I believe knowledge panels are the future in terms of controlling and managing generative AI on Google and Bing Chat. And when you look at this, it becomes even more obvious. Bing have got the filter pills, they've got the description, they've got the attributes, they've got the questions, they've got the people also search for. This rich Bing result on the right-hand side, including the generative AI description at the top on the right, is very much the future, where search, generative AI, chat, answer engines, if you prefer, will be combined. Google has said, and indeed Bing have said as well, that search remains the jumping off point. The generative AI and the chat functionality is part of bringing the user down the funnel to the ultimate solution to their problem. And control is the ultimate aim for you too. You want to control how these engines bring the subset of their users, who are your audience, down the funnel to ultimately do business with you. And you want to maximize the number of times they cite your brand and they recommend your brand to their users as they come down the funnel. And remember, I said earlier on, all SERPs are a mixture of facts and recommendations. That mixture between fact and recommendation is going to become increasingly blurred. And that is what we need to deal with. And that's exactly what we do at Calicube. And the key to control and the key to managing how these machines understand and represent you is the entity home. If you have an entity home solidly anchored in the brain and the algorithms of these machines, then you become the master of how they present your brand, and you vastly increase the probability that they will recommend your brand simply because they understand it and they're confident in their understanding of who you are, what you offer, and who your audience is. Now here's a quick reminder at the end of things that you would want to retain in your brain. SERPs and chat are built from facts and recommendations. A knowledge panel is a summary of search results. Knowledge panels are increasingly information rich. Brand knowledge panels are key to your digital strategy. Managing knowledge panels is a 3-step simple process. And you can easily turn generative AI in search from a threat into an opportunity if you take control. With Calicube, we optimize your brand on search. You're the best in market. Show it across search. Take control of your brand narrative online and dominate the competition. If your knowledge panel is part of your digital marketing strategy, then you're doing it right. Thank you.